panel. Let's see. It says the broadcast is live. I don't know if we live.
Yeah, I'm gonna take his word for
it. We'll take the stream's word for it. Welcome to our panel. My name is Justin Copeland. This is my brother.
Guess what I found?
This is my brother Chris Copeland. It was my watch. I hit it.
Robots.
Yeah. And the name of our panel is Storyboards, the Foundation to Animation. And yeah, we'll dive in. I don't know if you want to say a few words and then we'll dive in.
No, it's just exciting. I mean, we can't see anybody, so we don't know. We're speaking to ghosts, essentially. So we will hope that you guys are there and that we can share some stuff to sort of give you a look into our experience getting to where we are, and then some ideas and stuff about our process.
Yep. This is one of those conventions that I wish, like, COVID is really doing it for this one, because this is one of those ones that Chris and I would definitely show up to in real life. This is one that we would definitely try to make. I think, we don't do a lot of conventions unless it's like work, but we don't do a lot. Definitely do San Diego. We try to hit up CTN every now and then. New York Comic-Con is a good one, but we don't really go to a lot. This one, I think we're going to try to put on the schedule, because it's right up north. We don't get up there a lot.
Yeah.
It will be dope. But yeah, sorry, we got to do it digitally, but it's a good chance just to, jump in and check this place out. So suppose we should jump in. So I just wanted to start off like with a little bit of a bio about us, just to, if for those of you who don't know us, like we grew up in Chicago, everywhere. Our father's from the South Side, but our mother is from the North Side, and we mama's boys. But we live on the North Side mostly. So we're from Rogers Park, and we grew up kind of poor, as most Black folk in Chicago do. But we had a great childhood. It was a great experience, and I've always been fascinated by filmmaking. I didn't know that films were an art form. I thought movies were real. I thought they were just filming somebody's life. How a young child's mind works. But one day my mom told me, like, man, you have an imagination like Steven Spielberg. No joke. And I was like, who is this? And I remember watching a movie, a Steven Spielberg movie. I can't remember which one. I'm guessing E.T. or something. And at the end of the movie on old VHS tapes, if you let the movie keep running, they had making of featurettes. And there was a making of featurette, and they showed this dude, doing all the things to make the movie. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I just knew it in my soul, and growing up when we would play, if we would play filmmaking sometimes, and it was just assumed that I'm going to direct, but since we didn't have money, we had to find an outlet for our craft. And our uncle used to send us boxes of comic books and books, and we would flip through those, and we fell in love with comics. It was a way for us to get that creative outlet out, to be able to draw and tell a story. So we fell in love with comics, and growing into like teenage years, just loved it. Loved the art form. We grew up in the magical golden time of comics in the 90s, where it just blew up, went super mainstream.
And whereas like Justin loved film a ton, me, I was mostly cartoons and like graffiti and things like that. And we shared mutual sort of admiration for all of them in some ways, but it was definitely cool seeing that sort of sitting at the table, drawing from what we sort of were influenced by, respectively. It was pretty dope how that formulated.
Yeah, it was dope. And there was a group of us, we would just hit up the comic shops all the time. And we were just like, we got obsessed with trying to break into comic books. And it was really hard. We had each other. We were kind of hard on each other. At the same time, we would try to build each other up. You know, we wanted to do our best job, the best job we could possibly could. But we started going to comic book conventions all over the country, you know, and by all over the country, I mean New York, North Carolina, Philly, LA, San Diego a couple times. Chicago, of course. Chicago had a really good convention. It was pretty big. And from there, you know, showing your work to professionals, that was everything for us, you know, because they would just drop knowledge bombs on us and we're like, dope. And Chris and I are the type of dudes that are like, oh, word, that's how you do it. I bet. So then we go back to the house, stay up all night, you know, and try to add to the portfolio. What is it that's wrong with my work? How come it doesn't look as good as the professional comic book do? So spent years trying to break in. Went to school. I went to film school, Columbia College in Chicago. Very, very expensive. I was asked to leave after 2.5 years because I couldn't afford it. I could no longer afford it. Chris went to a couple of schools.
Illinois Institute of Art.
Yeah.
They had like a cool scholarship thing. And so I went there and, you know, was like, oh, let me try. We'd never gotten any formal training. Yeah. It was all just sort of sit at the table and draw instead of going outside and doing. We were, gosh, I don't want to talk about it, like we were never outside or whatnot, because we were definitely out playing sports. Basketball was the first love. I had a bunch of friends and whatnot, but drawing was always the thing that we went back to. And so it was cool. Like, oh man, I could get sort of trained in art. Just the idea of that was bananas. So I went there I think I was there for a full year before I just realized like it was expensive as all heck. And then it was also just like, man, I don't think I need this at all. Like, and it wasn't because I wasn't being trained. I learned a lot while I was there, the life drawing classes, the color theory and things like that. But it was more this idea of like, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I felt comfortable. Justin and I, we spent some years public speaking. So I just felt comfortable talking and being myself. I was just like, man, I feel like if we can get around people, we can find the opportunity. So that was cool.
Yeah. So I learned a lot, met a lot of people, some folks that are still out here that are doing well. But it was the same thing. It was almost like, I don't know, it was like the lower, like, you don't need this no more, you know? So left that, got a job doing the public speaking, but we never stopped drawing comics. We just never stopped drawing, period, you know? Then one day Chris is like, I'm moving out to Burbank. And I'm like, no, you ain't. And that fool for real did.
Yeah. It was around the time, it was like, I don't know if anybody's familiar with DeviantArt, but it was around that time, you know, that 2005 to 2009. You just sort of, you're putting your work online and you're getting notoriety. You're getting people that are, you know, following you. And I just felt like if I really wanted to move past comic books and go into animation, that I needed to be in LA. I visited Warner Brothers, a friend of mine, Phil Barassa, lead designer on Young Justice at that time. He just invited me out and he was like, hey man, if you ever move out here, I think you got a real good chance. You're talented, you're easy to be around. And so that's when my wife and I were just like, you know what, man, that's it. We're gone. And moved out here with $3,000 in my pocket and was just filling out applications and got a call from Warner Brothers that they were like, we're looking to bring in new talent. If you move out here, we can hire you. I was like, yeah, I moved out here yesterday and started that next week. Got fired after 5 months because I was terrible, but that was the start of the career.
Yeah, so I came out to visit a few months after he moved out. He moved out in June. I came out in October, and I had my portfolio and you know walking around Warner Brothers. It was dope actually.
Oh my God!
I need to hit up Bobby and thank her for because they set up a desk for me, and they basically were like, sorry, my camera's doing this weird thing. They basically were like, yo, you could do like a test if you want. I was a really good environment BG artist. And they were basically like, you could do like a test here for like a week. So I did it. At the end of the week, they were like, nah, you didn't get it. But for some reason, that didn't concern me. It felt like if I really wanted to work there, I could, you know. It was like getting my feet wet in the industry, you know. But a lot of the artists were like, dude, you're oozing with talent. You're easy to be around. You can still hear that. That's a common phrase, you know. You're easy to be around. And I was a hard worker. So I went back home to Chicago That was the most exciting flight ever. I was just like, I got it. So I went back home, started drawing. Chris called me up and was like, I got fired, yo. And I was like, dang, son.
December 22nd, 2009.
I couldn't believe it because I was scheduled. My wife and I decided we were going to do it in February of the next year. And then he got fired. So I was like, ooh, that's all my prospects. But it really wasn't. When we sat back and thought about it, I was just like, I don't think it matters, really. If one group at a studio says I have talent, I can get hired at another place, you know. So we packed up all our stuff, got rid of half of it, and drove out. And 3 weeks to the day that I drove out, I got a job at Marvel, and never really looked back. And that makes it seem like it was super easy, you know, but it wasn't. This whole story was, we started really getting serious about breaking into comics. At least I know I did personally when I was 17, because I wanted to be like Joe Mad and break in when I was a teenager, which that was not gonna happen.
We were super confident that we was gonna be in there like 17, 18, just like, yo, what's up? You know what I'm saying? Like,
my job at.
Not even close.
But you gotta have that audacity.
Yeah.
You gotta have the audacity to believe that you can do something, because if you look at the credits of anything that's been created, those are just people. Those are all people, you know. So we drove out, I got a gig, and started doing storyboards. I did a few storyboards in college, but for those of you who ever tried to take storyboards in college, they don't know nothing. They're not gonna. I shouldn't say they don't know anything, but the ins and outs of what storyboarding is, they don't have their finger on that pulse. I was gonna
say, I'm like, it could, that can sound like a harsh statement, but the reality is, it's just like there's so many layers to storyboarding and I remember when I was at Illinois Institute of Art and I took a storyboarding class, and I just remember being like, oh my gosh, I'm learning it all. And then I get into storyboarding and I was just like, this dude, he could have done a whole month on just this one little element alone. And I would have been a much better artist. So it's not an insult. It's more just the idea of like, the foot to the ground of storyboarding is, you know it when you've done it for a long time on different shows and whatnot.
Yeah. So, where was I going with that?
So you were at Marvel at that time. I had gotten fired from Warner Brothers. Yeah. And I started at Hasbro on Transformers Prime. That was in February 10th of 2010. And because I remember it was 2/10/20 or 2/10/10. And that was like the best thing that happened to my career, was being fired from Warner Brothers, because of the way that it happened, me getting hired. I got hired the day after. I got a call from Joaquin Dos Santos. Shout out to Joaquin, big mentor, big champ. He called me the day after I got out here. I started a week after we moved out here. That's not the Hollywood story. Usually you're busting tables, you know, at a restaurant or something like that. But that was a byproduct of my art being online and them meeting me. They're like, we got a full picture of this guy. Let's give him a shot. Getting fired was the best thing that happened to me, because I got to go in sort of the belly of the beast and like experience it. And it was amazing. And, you know, I remember Phil Barraza, designer, he said to me, like, yeah, like getting in is sort of, you know, not to minimize or anything, but it's the simple things, like staying in and taking that first lump when you get fired that first time, getting back on a horse. That's where the real sort of challenge comes in. But that was really, like Justice saying, you know, storyboarding at Marvel for him was where his career started. Me getting fired from WB was really where my career started. It really built the fire in me to go like, all right, man, I gotta match the energy and sort of kill it every step of the way here. So that was a really interesting thing that happened there.
Yeah, I remember what I was gonna say, because I had never done boards really before that. So, and I almost got fired. You know, I've never been fired. It feels like I have. Feels like I have, but I've never been fired. You know, I could have. That's why it feels like I probably should have in a couple places. But sitting down at the Cintiq, you know, at a studio that's doing two giant Marvel shows in Burbank, California, 2 kids and a wife that rely on me. That was very scary, you know. But film school, studying film, most of the stuff I learned at film school was on the train to school every day, reading books and just filling my head with knowledge of like what's the filmmaking process, learning how to write, and all that stuff. So, and then also all the years of drawing comics. When I sat down, it wasn't like I was, you know, wet behind the ears, fresh out of college. I wasn't. I was ready, you know. So I got close to getting fired after a couple of months. You know, I wasn't really. I kept doing what I thought they wanted, you know, which is my comic book stuff, and that animation is not comics, you know.
No.
God, so no. Yeah, it's a whole different thing, you know. But we use that knowledge to help propel our career. That's what we lean back on, that thing of sitting around a table drawing together. I remember one of the people there said, like, drawing isn't what you do best, so we're going to give you all of the stuff where you have to write on all the boards or do all the scene descriptions and blah blah blah. It's the individual that you are that we could talk about him afterwards. Worst director at Film Roman. And I was like, oh, word, I can't draw. Okay, number one, I could outdraw everybody at the studio. I just knew I could. But number two, I was like, yeah, actually do that, you know. And that's how I learned how to direct, is by doing all of that stuff.
All of the production stuff.
Yeah, I'll learn the pipeline, you know. So I knew the pipeline better than every revisionist in there because they made me do all that stuff. And then I just started destroying with my art. So that was like huge. Once we started to do, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but we started to move up and direct once we had a better understanding of story, and then we learned the animation process. Once that happened, you know, the sky was the limit. And between Chris and us, and this isn't every studio that we've ever worked at, but we're at Marvel, Warner Brothers, Cartoon Network, Skybound, Titmouse. We've been at a lot of places.
Yeah.
DreamWorks.
Yeah. DreamWorks twice for me. But yeah, and Warner Brothers, you know, was always the go-to. But yeah, it's weird. Like for Justin, it was like, and for me too, small and smaller doses. It was Justin learning the system and mastering it. For me, it was learning myself. You know, like there was a whole lot of like myself that I didn't know about. The fact that I had ADHD, like I didn't learn that until I was like 34 years old. And so, you know, knowing how bad I wanted to do what I was doing as a storyboard artist, the criticism that I always got was, man, Chris, you know, it wasn't that I drew better, it was you draw too much, because I was always over finessing everything because I'd go into this rabbit hole thing and, you know, was constantly missing deadlines just because my brain would just go like, oh, that's colorful, I'm going over there, you know, like, so that idea of tapping into learning about yourself, and like Justin said, going back to those times where we would sit at the table to draw those comic books, nothing would get in our way, nothing stopped us. It was just sort of like, now at that point you weren't working a job, so you can't tell you have ADHD. There's nothing to reference against. You're just sort of like, oh, let's just do it and then play video games and then blah blah blah. So it was going back to those mentally and going like, no, I know what I want to do. I've learned the system. I need to just lock in and you know, and I went and saw a doctor, got on some medication for my ADHD. Get to know yourself, guys. That's some big advice. And that really sort of helped me focus more and really maximize my potential. And once we did that, learning the system, connecting with the production people, really going like, okay, now what is this industry about? What are we here to do? And tell the story. And what does that mean on a practical, like feet to the ground sense? And that's where the fun sort of started in a lot of ways.
It was dope. We, you know, and we had, and I see you guys' comments. We're going to do Q&A with like the last 10, 15 minutes. And so, yeah, you can post all your questions in the comments. So yeah, then Chris and I had started to work together too. And that was a huge thing. Just learning how we work together. We're brothers, so we fight, you know. I have an idea of what I think, a director should be. He has an idea of what it should be. And it was just coming together and figuring that out. That was another huge thing,
Yeah.
So that's like a bio for us, this is about storyboards, and how that can be a foundational piece to your career, Chris and I sort of fell into storyboards. I didn't set out to be a storyboard artist. Like most people, you kind of don't know about storyboards. Maybe it's becoming a little bit more mainstream with Instagram and
I think it is now.
Yeah, the art sites, but we didn't have all that,
No.
In fact, the first time Chris showed me storyboards, I blew my mind. I'm like, what? You can do this now? I didn't feel like, the boards were sick.
Oof.
I didn't feel like it was anything I couldn't do. Now, drawing like that fool.
But that's the thing, so right? Like it's like you can. I remember first seeing a Joaquin board or a Lauren Montgomery or Kiyun Ryu or LaShawn Thomas storyboard, and isolated in and of itself, you're just like, that's not that impressive of a drawing, right? Because your comic book brain is still thinking about these comic book drawings. But then when you start pushing play on the sequence and you're seeing the thing, but you're just like, oh my God. When I first saw a Joaquin board, that was one of the first storyboards I saw when I got in. And if you don't know who Joaquin Dos Santos is, Google him. But I remember first seeing a storyboard, and it's like coming out of high school, getting drafted into the league, and them showing you a LeBron James practice. You're just like, what? It was bananas. It was bananas, but it was amazing. You talk about inspiration. We grew up in Chicago, right? Like, so the Michael Jordan, the Kobe Bryant, that sort of like passion for the fight type thing. It was, you're like, yo, I'm in, let's go.
Yeah. So I had when I first saw a board, I was like, this is stuff that I can do, and I'm gonna pursue this. I'm gonna pursue being able to tell a story like this. And it was mind blowing. It was great. Storyboards are the first step into getting the story on screen. You have character designs, you have background designs, you have prop designs, effects, dialogue, color. None of it matters without the storyboard, because they're only going to design what's in the board. If it's not boarded, none of that matters. If it's not in the board, then you don't need to design it. It's a waste of time, and time is everything on these shows. The thing that's expensive is how much time it takes creatives to create the show or movie or whatever that you're doing. That storyboard is everything. And so what usually happens Chris and I work in feature animation now for DreamWorks, but we grew up in TV, and what tends to happen in TV is they give you a script. You usually have 7 to 8 pages. If it's a sweatshop studio, you'll have 10 to 12 pages. And you have to do it in 4 to 6 weeks. Right now, I don't think anybody's on 4-week schedule anymore, unless they just literally hate you. Unless it's like real small studio. But most of the big studios are on a 6-week schedule, and you got 6 weeks to board out a sequence, and put an animation. So we get the script, do thumbnails or roughs, and you start drawing the storyboard and putting the ideas down on screen. Once you put the ideas down on screen, the script it no longer matters.
Nope.
Sometimes before you start putting the images down on screen, the script doesn't matter.
Man.
Sometimes it's so bad that you have to rewrite it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not completely by yourself. You're with your director. You guys have to figure out what that visual story is going to be.
Yeah, and ideally you're with a team of other story artists, and you're all reading the script, and you're sort of building ideas together. There's a lot of times where I'll run into a lock and brain lock, and I'm just like, man, I can't. And then one of my homies will come over and just be like, oh man, like blah blah, and just chit chat, and you get like, oh, you get an idea sparked up. So it's a pretty cool organic atmosphere. Ideally.
When you forget, they're like, oh, that scene, he doesn't do that. He does this, like, because it starts in my scene. And you're like, oh, snaps. And just that different thing gives you a different idea. It breaks that lock. You're like, dang, okay, now I know, But yeah, so that's the process. You're working with a team. You're working with your director. Your director ideally will say like, well, this is what's motivating the characters in this scene. This is where they're going to go. This is what happens. And they're giving you ideas, you know, ideally. Sometimes it doesn't happen. It's your job to sit there and come up with those visuals and make it work. And you got a few weeks to do that. Chris and I got to a point where we could turn it in on time, you know, if we wanted to. But James Cameron has a great quote. He's like, anybody that's on time ran out of ideas, you know. And this is the dude who directs, you know, $300 million movies. And
yeah.
So we're always trying to push it, you know, like there's a certain level that TV animation can get away with, because you're doing these boards and all this design and you're sending it overseas, probably, most likely. And we're trying to see what's the best that we can get away with. How can we make it look the best with what we have? So, you know, sometimes you run late, but most of the time you could take our boards at any point, you know, because it works. So that's the first step. To me, I fell in love with storyboards very quickly, because it helped me to do the thing that I love, which is direct. It's like the first, you're directing that scene, you know, the scenes that you're in control of. You're calling the shots. You're the cinematographer. You're deciding where the camera is going to be placed and how it's going to move and what it's going to see and what the lighting is going to look like. You're an actor because you're drawing performance. You're determining what that performance is going to be. You're a prop designer, you know, because those boards need props. Those characters are doing stuff. What else? What am I missing?
Yeah, sound. You're even to an extent. Yeah, you're like sound designing. You know, you're thinking about like, if I want to put a certain sound effect here in order to motivate my cut to this other shot, you are really using your imagination to build the scene. And the thing about storyboarding and the thing about drawing and how much comic books helped us is it's pencil mileage. You're just going and going and going, and you're building a shorthand so you can move quick. So you're searching for the ability to draw fast but make it clear. If it's not clear, you haven't done your job, because it needs to be seen and read and understood. So it's a real crazy method of getting a story down, and you get it down, you look at it, you're like, change this, change that. And then you're thinking about editing, you know, like taking a scene from one thing to another without even doing much drawing. Once it's done, you just sort of move stuff around and see what it feels like.
Yeah, and we came in right in the transition of storyboards. So like editing was key because stories became digital. And when they became digital, you know, especially using Storyboard Pro and using a Cintiq, Wacom really changed animation. They changed a lot of the landscape. I'm saying Wacom because I'm a hood cat. It's probably Wacom.
It's yeah, Japanese I think. I mean, I'm saying that like, but I remember. But see, I remember Tiff, Phil's wife, going like, yeah, that WA. If it's Japanese, it's Wa.
There you go. So Wacom, they really changed the game up. And so animation went into this more, we could really animate if we wanted to. So editing, you had to know timing. You had to know animation timing. In fact, you have to know animation timing. There are a few really good books. There's one called Timing for Animation. The Animation Survival Kit by Richard, what's his name, is another good one. That's Richard Williams. That's a really good book to have. He really does a deep dive into animation timing. I highly recommend learning timing because the speed at which things are happening on screen will determine the drama, you know. So the game like really changed around right when we got in. It became this thing. But so when you're transferring the story from the script to the screen and storyboards, it gives you your first chance to see if the story actually works. You know, does this thing work? Is it moving well? Because after that, I mean, you know, they write the script. Once you put it down, it's over. The story is now the visuals. It's what's going to be on screen, and from there, they're going to send it overseas. They're going to send the script as well, but they're going to follow the boards. You know, the boards are everything. So it's your first time being able to see, does the story actually work? And if it doesn't work, what's broken about it? And it's your job to fix it. we're not going back to script. Sometimes studios will go back to script. It's a waste of time. You hire your board artists to tell the story. They're storyboard artists. They should sit down. They should be able to sit down and do it. So this is the key. So we talked about editing, being able to edit yourself and all the roles that you're responsible for as being a cinematographer and all that stuff. Also, it's very important to know how to write, to have an understanding of narrative storytelling. Because if I give you, we do our boards, those TV shows, which is most likely where folks will get their first shot. They're 4-act plays. There's a what is that? What is it called before Act A? Well, what do we call that? It's been so long.
Oh God,
it's been so long since I've been in TV. So, but you have like this opening. We'll just call it the opening. It's like right before Act A.
I remembered it right before you asked me what it was, and then my brain was like,
"No, I'm gone."
Teaser.
Is that it? Yeah, the teaser. And then from the teaser, you go into Act A, and then Act 2, blah blah. When I give you Act 2, you should know as a board artist, okay, we're in Act 2. This is what usually happens in Act 2. This is what usually happens in Act 2A and Act 2B. This is what usually happens in Act 3. So that's where your writer brain kicks in as a board artist, knowing the narrative. If you have an understanding of the narrative, it'll help change the cinematography for you. It'll help determine how the camera moves. It should be more epic because it's the end of the movie, rather than, you can make things more epic in Act 2, but you're building to this. This is the end of the orchestra, So putting that board down helps you. Like you put it down, you hit play, and you see how the story is working out, and your writer brain kicks in to help make it, into what it should be. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yeah, no, that's like the rough sort of like, this is what we build with the storyboard, and from there, it's a lot of rules. When you're watching a movie, a lot of times the reason why you're watching a movie like, I know what's about to happen next, is because movies and scripts and writers and creatives are abiding by a set of rules. Now, how you break and twist and push and pull those rules creatively or otherwise, that's your individual sort of creative input, right? David Fincher is going to do it different than Steven Spielberg, who's going to do it different than Brad Bird. Like that's sort of the thing. And that's the fun for us, right? Like Justin and I, combined 20 plus years now in animation and doing storyboards and some design. You just sort of now know what the rule book is. And now we're going like, all right, how do we take stories that need to be told and finessing them with our breaking of the rules? How do we do that now? And that's where we are in our career, and that's the exciting part. And you find that same thing too when you're not directing something as a storyboard artist, when you're going like, oh man, I can have this guy go through this thing and like that's that cool fun stuff when you locked into the rules enough to finesse them. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, really dope. There's about 5 years in when I went to Warner Brothers and worked on The Killing Joke with Sam and Bruce and all those guys. That was the time where I felt like after working on Killing Joke I felt really comfortable. I felt like, all right, I feel like I know what this is. I feel like I know what storyboarding and storytelling actually is. To be able to break the rules. And I remember Sam he's just hammering me, just like, dude, you got to know how to come from your gut, and you got to learn how to tell a story. Like, what in the heck are you trying to say? That is super important, knowing where you're going. It's not enough to just, and you hear it all the time from like fans dropping lines on forums and all that stuff. I would have had Spider-Man doing this, and I would have had Spider-Man doing that, blah, blah, blah. That is a moment that I would have had. Is a moment. You have to build these things. You have to build them up, and you got to keep 100 people on that same moment. You got to keep them on that same journey, with you, because it's not just you building it. And you got to convince the people upstairs who are turning the money levers you got to keep them happy. You got to keep them excited. You know, it's their job to take money and make more with it, with your story. You know, and they're not just gonna let you. I would have made Spider-Man do blank. They're not just gonna let you do that. You know, so like I got really comfortable about 5 years in. You know, and then I still feel like I had a lot to learn. Going to Skybound and working on Invincible taught me most everything else. That was the crucible, running a gigantic show, putting a team together, directing a bunch of people in 2 continents, and directing overseas studios, you know, to animate and all that stuff. That was a huge deal.
And trying to direct, creatively, visually direct the shows, the episodes, and, you know, like to have creative input as opposed to just sort of leadership, protocol, establishment, and whatnot. It was bananas. Kipo, when I was on Kipo, it was right before Invincible, and that was where I sort of locked into like the rhythm, because I had not had a lot of I had a lot of directing experience as a storyboard artist. You know, you're doing a lot of that, and sort of as you grow and evolve, you're going like, oh, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this because this is needed for what part of the script that I'm in, and blah blah blah. But Kipo was where I really jumped into a really nice rhythm because the idea of the show was so dope and out there. Shout out to our homie Rad Seacrest. Who's like a creative brother for Justin and I as well. But it was such an out there idea that Rad was like, Chris, you got to get on this thing and direct. And so every episode was just like, let's find and mine and build cool stuff. And then, like Justin said, when we were show running on Invincible, that's where you sort of learned a lot of the other stuff, the political, the industry, the working in conjunction with big power people and whatnot. And it was fun and scary and crazy and bananas in some good ways.
Yeah, and it's been cool to take all of that TV experience and move it over to feature and try to learn how DreamWorks, they've been around for 25 years, learn how they do feature films and learn how we can add to it, but also, you know, progress and go left when at this turn you always go right. And Chris and I are like, what if you did left though? Flip your left.
It's funny too. And that's the thing. It's funny too because it's like every answer to those questions you ask is like no, because there's no. You're not relegated to nearly as many creative limitations or ideas in feature as you are in TV. And feature, it's sort of like, does it work? And if it works and it's clear, then go to town, go crazy. That's exciting and dope, but it's also scary because you're like, I'm gonna put this thing here, right? And then you look around and everyone's like, yeah, that's the thing. You're like, yeah, hell yeah. Or you're like, all right, boom, let me put another one. And then everyone looks at it and they're like, what the hell? What is this? And you're like, wait, what? You know, it can freak you out. So it's pretty dope. In the most, you have the freedom. Do you have the vision sort of way? And that's sort of what Justin and I are traversing with DreamWorks now. I think, is this thing supposed to end at 6:50? I feel like I saw somewhere that our thing ends at 6:50. So I'm wondering, like, did we show some? Are we gonna
an hour? But shoot,
I thought so too.
I guess you want to try to show some stuff.
I don't know. I saw we were talking. I don't know if we were thinking about showing stuff or having people. I don't know how many people are in here or something.
It's at 7. We have 22 minutes.
It's at 7. Okay, dope. So. Thanks, do you want to open up for some Q&A? Or
I mean, there's a couple questions there, but I was going to say, this is AFROCOMICON. So I'm imagining I'm talking to a room full of thousands and thousands of
I hope so.
Of Black people, you know, trying to break in the game, want to know what it's like, want to know what it's about, interested in animation, you know, and Hollywood, if you have, you know, been paying attention to like Hollywood, they're very excited about you know. And I would say that in reality, they are excited about what is your voice, what is it, like you have the chance. What do you want to say, you know? And fellas like Chris and I, we don't want it to just be a fad. We don't want it to be a thing it's a microwave dinner. You know, it's hot for 2 minutes and then throw it in the trash. You know, we want this thing to last and go. And it's going to take a generation of folks coming in that are eager to learn, that are patient, you know, that are going to learn the process, but are hungry, not going to give up, and have some stories to tell. We all got stories, you know, that we want to tell, and being patient about feature people are easy to freak out. They're real easy because you do something like, no, God, no, don't do that. And then you ask them about their process and you're like, do you like your process? And they're like, no. You're like, bro, you know, if you don't like it, let's make it better, you know. But you got to be patient, you know. But at the same time, you got to be hungry. And Chris and I are hungry. We want to tell some dope stories. We think the feature that we're working on, the world is going to go crazy when they see it because it's dope. It's us, you know. And it's only the beginning. We're not doing all the things, you know. We're not doing all of the Black people things, you know. We're touching on, we're seeing the lives of, you know, of some people, but we're gonna need other people. I do want to see all of the things, you know, but that takes more and more people. So
that's for all the other people to tell those stories. We can only be hungry to tell the stories that Justin and I see as important. We can only be hungry enough to put the camera in the spotlight in the places that we are like, yo, that's important. And that's the beauty of our experiences, right? Like everybody has different experiences and want to tell different stories. And here's the other beauty about it is that those stories and your experience and your journey it's a plant. It takes time for it to grow, right? It takes watering on specific days, it takes a certain sort of dirt. And what I mean by that is like, everybody gets in and they're starving. They're like, yo, we're like gnawing at the teeth hungry in that first month. Then you get fired from Warner Brothers, right? And then it's like, how hungry are you then? Does that hunger still exist? So that's where that getting to know yourself comes into play. And Justin and I have wanted to do this for a long time, man. Our goal is still to direct a live action movie. Our goal is still to, I don't know, build a school somewhere in Chicago, like a film school or whatnot. Like we still have those things, but we know what our vision is, and it's locked in. It's very like, tell the stories, put the stuff on the screen, because that's what we've been wanting to do from the jump. And we're like, that's where we're going to keep that at, and every step just sort of feeds that a little bit more, satiates it a little bit less.
Yeah, man, definitely. We're gonna need y'all. I mean, how many good stories do we have in us? I mean, it takes 4 years to make one of these,
man.
You know, and you know, in 40 years, I'm gonna be 80. You know, so it's gonna take everybody. You know, okay. We could start fielding some questions. Any advice for a college freshman? I would say, know what you want to do. A lot of people get into college. I'm gonna get in the film program, but it's broad after that. It's like, oh, I'll do anything. Like, there's a line 3 miles long full of people that will do anything, but know what you want to do. Do you want to write? Do you want to direct? Do you want to be a cinematographer or bottom? Whatever that thing is, you got to push after that, you know? For me, college is tough because like you're going to go to a place where how much are they really going to give you? You know, how much can they actually give you? The best film schools in the country for this stuff: USC, UCLA. What's the other one by you, Chris?
Oh, Art Center. No,
Art Center is
Cal
Arts. Okay, those are 4 best in the world. I mean, in America. You got Gobelin in France. You got a bunch of colleges around. If you get hired out of one of those colleges, you're gonna be terrible. It's just the fact of the matter. You're not gonna be ready to do it. So what is it that school is actually gonna give you? Try to get the best out of that. You know, push those people to give you everything, you know, that you can possibly get. That's number one. Number two, most of the learning you're gonna do on your own. So if it's about getting a degree, get an associate's degree in English.
Yeah, so straight up.
Yeah. And then I would take, Chris and I have a storyboard class. I'm not pushing that right now, but there are tons of classes that you can take online, drawing and storyboarding. I would do those as well to supplement your education, because college is rough. It's because it's expensive. It's going to give you a seat to sit down and draw, but that's about it. So.
Let's see. Favorite Marvel and DC projects you worked on? Oof. I'll get back to you on that one.
I would say Batman Hush was my favorite, because that was my directorial debut and it was a great story. Did you like Batman Turtles? Is that your favorite?
Batman Turtles would be my favorite for sure. Yeah. Batman Turtles was my favorite. That was the one I definitely had the most fun board on that thing. Shout out to Jay Castorena, the director on that. Bullet head homie of ours, man. But Jake let me have that dude let me have a.
Oh, Chris dropped out. Jake let him have a blast. He let him run amok, as Jake is wont to do. Chris will be back. His internet, all his kids are wearing his internet down on all them video games at his house. What challenges talking about? I don't know really what you're asking there. Let's see. How does a person who is self-taught break into the industry today? It's going to take a long time. But a lot of what we talked about, you can take some keywords from there. It's all about learning how to tell a story, and learning how to tell a story. People who tell jokes are great storytellers. Man, there's one time this dude walked into a bar and sat down next to a blah, 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 and then you tell the joke. That's a great story. It's having a punchline is you learning how to tell a story. Now, visually, how do you do that? So it's you really taking the time to study visually, how do I tell a great story? And then how can I create a portfolio that will help me do that? Dude, your internet was being all like, it was on the fritz anyway.
Bro, it kicked me. It straight booted me out. I was like, yo, what's up, man?
All the kids wearing that thing on.
Man, wackadoo.
So yeah, it's learning the story and then putting a portfolio together and putting that portfolio out into the world and having people beat the crap out of it. Having people, give you critiques, and don't take that critique personally. No. Nobody cares about you. No. They care about what you're showing them. Now if they do start to get personal, then that's the place you want to work.
Walk off.
Yeah, but it's don't take the critique personally, and you just keep on moving. So that's Chris and I are both self-taught, and we both broke in by doing that, years and years of portfolio reviews and just trying and learning the story.
Yeah. Push. Be great. Just keep going. Pin some mileage, man. Hang a carrot over your head that makes you keep pushing yourself. How does the pitching an idea work with your peeps at Marvel? I don't know what peeps we had at Marvel.
I got mad peeps at Marvel, Joe.
I mean, the pitching process, what are you pitching? Are you trying to pitch a property? Like, are you trying to pitch a movie concept or a movie idea? Are you trying to get a movie greenlit? Is it an original thing? There's so many variables to pitching. I remember when we were younger, and because Justin and I were the artists, and our other brother as well, our eldest brother, we were the artists, and everybody would always be like, yo, just make your own thing. Why y'all keep doing other people? Make your own thing. And I was just like, man, that never vibed well with me, because it didn't seem realistic. It was always sort of like, I feel like there's more to it than that. And I was right. Like, you, in terms of pitching your own thing, create your thing, but first understand the system, learn the system, learn like, it's the whole idea of acclimate before you activate, right? Like, learn what is being pitched, what studios are looking for in terms of material. And then once you know that, then you're building, you better understand story, write out a one sheet, do some cool designs to pitch to someone that there. And you know, hope you can get a seat in a chit chat room with them.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it for that.
Don't pitch your own ideas to studios. Hang on to those bad boys.
Yeah.
Learn, grow in that studio, and then pitch your own thing.
Yeah.
And because your own ideas could be potentially worth millions of dollars. But storyboarding for video games, similar to storyboarding animation shorts. Yeah, a lot of times though they will build their assets for video games and just use those to move the characters around. But it's pretty similar. How many revisions do you have to tolerate until you get to the grape? I'm guessing you mean like how many revisions, you know, do you like it, you know, it's like normal in the process. Like if I have I'm gonna answer this in the best way I know how. Like if I have as a director, I have a certain amount of time to ship an episode. My production manager and my line producer have written out the schedule. We're dropping this thing in the mail on whatever date, and that's how long I have to get everything done for that show or movie. So I'll do as many revisions as I possibly can and make the thing good.
As I was about to say, there's an endless amount of revision. Everything that I've ever worked on, I want to work on it some more and could have put it, but the clock said ding, 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 and that meant crap, turn it in. So
yeah,
you're always wanting to make it better.
Now, if you're asking, if you're a young person, if you're like or new to the industry, how many do I tolerate before I'm like, this ain't gonna work? A lot. You know, it's not about, I don't expect you to come in and just start hitting home runs. You know, if you have work ethic, if you're working hard, you have potential, you show that you can be good, then I'm gonna train you. You know, if you show that you don't know how to learn, you take everything personally. Every time notes come in, it's a fight or whatever, you're not gonna last long. You're gonna be out because it's like the NFL. In the NFL, everybody is fast. The fellas who get good are the ones who can be coached. Those that become great players. If you can listen and be coached, you know, your speed will be utilized correctly. And that's how I am. I'm a sports fanatic. Chris and I both are. And I like to use analogies from sports. Like if you are, you fast, you good. But if you ain't listening, then you're useless. You know, it's not about you. It's about people spending millions of dollars to try to make billions of dollars. It's okay to fit into that because they will make you rich in the process as well. So, and I have not reached that yet, but
studio wants you to win. Directors want you to win because if you win, they win. It's a very simple concept. And sometimes you do have people with, you know, agendas of their own that sort of are pushing and pulling you to fulfill that agenda. And, you know, my thing is like, I'm not going to let your greed beat my journey up. You know what I mean? So, I'm at a place where I'm just like, I know what I'm going to do on that treadmill when I get on there. So you can give me all the information possible to make me better. And when I get on that treadmill, I'm just going to go even further based on what you're telling me. So it's that idea. Favorite project and why? The one we're doing right now, because it's ours.
Yeah, it's a feature. Man. There was a lot of really good ones in there. Invincible was dope until it wasn't. Hush was dope because it was my directorial debut. I also directed a Wonder Woman movie. That was fun. Gotham by Gaslight is my favorite Batman story.
Gotham by Gaslight was so fun, man. I forgot about that.
Are you on that too?
Yeah, I got a ton of boards from that thing, man. That thing was fun as heck.
What's
the prison? Remember the prison fight when Bruce went to prison? Yeah. And the kids, the one with the little part with the kids.
Yeah, that was dope. So
fun. But Kipo was something else, man. That was an experience in and of itself, just that I'll always go back to for a multitude of reasons, but creatively and just what it is, it was amazing. But what we're doing now, I'm like, it's real special. It's really special.
It's hard not to say the thing that you're working on because
oh god,
I'm a better artist, you know, than I was on the last thing, you know. So real quick before this thing ends, thank you guys for like coming.
Man,
support. We really appreciate it. You're probably going to be tempted to Google me and click on the first Instagram name you see. That's not that fella steals so many of my people.
God.
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is Justin Copeland Art. It is not that first one. Justin Copeland Art, all one word. So yeah, hit me up on there. Chris and I are always around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like PM, I may or may not get back to you, but most of the time I get back to personal DMs. Yeah, and look for our movie in a couple years. Can't tell you what it is, but
we'll be doing another storyboard class in the new year too. We'll update you guys when registration and stuff opens up. We're doing our last month for 2020 right now, so we can spend some time with our movie and with the family. But Chris Copeland Art on Instagram. Also follow the AFROCOMICON folks. I really feel like Justin said earlier, you know, as COVID clears up and we're able to do more, I'd love to really be a part of coming to this convention.
That show gonna be lit, son. This is gonna be legit.
Also, a huge shout out to Wacom. I was talking to everyone who was setting this thing up, and I said Wacom changed Justin and I's lives in a lot of amazing ways. I remember back in the day, Karan Grant, shout out to King Karan, amazing artist, but he was coloring on a tablet, and he was like, "Oh, it's a Wacom, it's an Intuos." And I remember my brain just being like, "What?" And man, so shout out to Wacom and the AFROCOMICON folks. Thank you guys for having us. It's been really amazing.
Oh, Kyle, I could try to answer your question as fast as possible. If you are a fight person, really dope fights. If not, then, you know, either way, you got to have good storytelling, but good action, you know, watch a good action movie. Watch one of those DC DTVs and you'll see everything you need to put into.
Build a good shorthand. Build a good shorthand.
Fight choreography.
Yep. Learn what animation drawing is about, economic shape theory. That work on that stuff, you guys. Clarity in your drawings. That stuff will take you real far. Boom. Is that the TikTok? Is that the...
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys. Everybody stay safe, stay hopeful. Get out there and vote.
Yeah, man.
Vote. Let's use our power. Adios.